Greetings from the UK, where I'm based. You've stuck around for this last session, so well done. At the end of this, I'm going to give you all a digital copy of my book, 101 Ways to Transform Your Pharmaceutical Brand Strategy by Learning from Healthcare Professionals Online. I promised it, for those of you that were in the workshop yesterday, I promised to give you a copy of this ebook. So at the end of this, I'll just show you how you can register for that. And I've arranged with my team for anyone from Pakistan who's at this conference to receive a copy of that ebook. So that'll give you some really practical tips and tools going forward. What we've done is we've analyzed 3,000 healthcare professionals in Pakistan who are using public social media. And I'm going to share with you some of the insights. It's brand new research just conducted for this conference, actually. And I'm going to give you some insights into how you can use that data to develop a better relationship with healthcare professionals through their social media activities. These healthcare professionals in Pakistan that we've studied, 3,000 of them, have posted more than 1.6 million times on social media. My company, Creation, has been tracking the digital behaviors of health stakeholders for over 20 years. In fact, in the 1990s, I saw that the internet was coming, and I believed it was going to change all of our lives in a huge way. And I saw that health and healthcare was one major area where the internet was really going to transform our lives and change it in a huge way. And I think we're still, in a sense, I'm as excited now, 21 years since setting the company up, about the opportunities that the internet's providing for changing lives through healthcare as I ever was. And in the last a number of years, we've been really tracking the digital behaviors of healthcare professionals specifically. We have a global database now through artificial intelligence, which is now tracking 1.6 million healthcare professionals all over the world. In Pakistan, we analyzed 3,000 healthcare professionals that are using public social media. And this is the first time this has ever been illustrated, actually. This is just healthcare professionals on Twitter. So it's removing everyone who's not a healthcare professional, just looking at the healthcare professional picture and to say which healthcare professionals are following which others. And you can see there's this really tight-knit network, actually, in the center of this diagram. Some of those further afield are a bit less well connected to other healthcare professionals, but right in the heart of this is a really tight network of healthcare professionals that are following each other, connected together. You can see we've classified them into physicians, dentists, nurses, and pharmacists, some of the key healthcare professional role types that are in that network. What's also really interesting to see is that they're not just following each other, but they're actually mentioning each other. So at the heart of this particular visualization, we see who's actually mentioning another healthcare professional. So we looked at it here over the last, since the beginning of 2018, the last 15 months of data, and we saw which healthcare professionals, when they tweet, are they mentioning another healthcare professional. We ignore if they're talking about someone else, but if they're mentioning other healthcare professional in Pakistan, then we show it on this diagram. So you can see the thicker lines show more mentions from one to another if they're mentioning somebody else. So where they may be following each other, actually often they can, there's a strong network of just conversations that are happening. And that's really what that is. It's an illustration of conversations happening between healthcare professionals in public social media. I think this is really exciting. If you're involved in any way in thinking about communications as a pharmaceutical company, then understanding that healthcare professionals are using public social media to talk to each other, and they may not necessarily know each other offline, but they may simply have found each other online, found another surgeon or specialist or dentist that they found online, and they're talking to them and having this conversation. And the fact this is a visible conversation that you can look at and see what's really on their mind is a really powerful opportunity. In fact, this network of healthcare professionals that we have analyzed here on Twitter is part of a much larger global network. So we see that these 3,000 healthcare professionals are followed by more than 12,000 healthcare professionals all over the world. You can see here the followers of the Pakistani healthcare professionals coming from the USA, Canada, all across Europe, South America, across Asia. So they're part of this huge global network. And again, this tells you something about the way these healthcare professionals are using social media. They're not just learning within one country, they're learning from all over the world. So using data from their tweets and from their social media posts, we've been able to analyze what platforms are they using. And this is quite important, really, if you're looking at engaging healthcare professionals digitally or via social media, to understand that when they're tweeting, when they're using Twitter, they are using these platforms. They're using Android, primarily Android phones, Android devices. They're also using iPhones, and to some extent they're using web clients, so pulling up a web browser and opening Twitter and going on social media that way. And they're also posting to Twitter from Facebook, and that actually gives us a clue about their other social media activities, which we've also analyzed. They're using Facebook, they're using Instagram, and these other public social media platforms. What's actually interesting about devices is to see that there's been a shift, and this is over a 15-month trend here. You can see iPhone there in the sort of orange bar is increasing share. So across all the tweets they've sent, month by month, iPhone's getting an increasing share. Android is staying roughly about the same, but it's actually the web clients, the sort of desktop, maybe laptop-based clients that are decreasing. They're using much more mobile devices, even than they were just 15 months ago. We can see iPhone increasing share and Android staying about the same. It's also interesting to get a sense of the language they're using. So we see that 53% of all the posts, and this across the 1.6 million social media posts that we've analyzed from healthcare professionals in Pakistan, 53% of them are in English language, 25% of them are in Urdu, and then we have some Hindi and some other languages as well in the mix there. And what we often find is that they may well be speaking, using Urdu to talk about local issues, to talk about things that are going on in Pakistan and so on. And they'll use English issues, maybe to talk about some of the scientific issues they're discussing. And also because when they recognize that they're engaging with an international community, they'll be using, of course, English language as well. So I thought I'd pull up some of the specifics in here. As I say, we've analyzed a huge number of tweets and posts by these healthcare professionals, but it was interesting to take a look and get a bit of a glimpse at what are healthcare professionals saying online about the pharmaceutical industry or pharmaceutical companies and that kind of engagement. And it's quite interesting if you take a look at some of these. There's a fair bit of skepticism in the online conversation of healthcare professionals about the pharmaceutical industry specifically. And I think this presents an opportunity, actually, as much as anything else, to see if they're going to be open about how they feel, to actually learn from customers in this kind of way and think, okay, how do we address this? Interesting one in the middle here is a post from somebody at Aga Khan University, actually, saying that this psychiatry is the only department which has put a sign up saying no pharma reps here, but maybe other ones are going to follow, and that leads to a bit of a conversation there with another doctor responding back and saying, well, all doctors are not corrupt and don't prescribe without an indication. But you can see this conversation taking place online, very visible conversation, and you can track that and see. And you can actually follow these individuals and see them in their public conversations and get a sense of what's really on their mind when they're thinking about pharmaceutical companies. So just a few other little insights here in terms of the platforms they're using. So when they are tweeting, they'll often include a link to another resource or something. We see that Facebook is the most likely thing they're going to link to, and that may well be to their own Facebook page or to another post that they've seen on Facebook. And they'll also link to other social media, YouTube, Instagram, and other resources as well as mainstream press websites. And we've done a breakdown here of the health-related hashtags that healthcare professionals are using. Just some of the top ones on here, so you can see that they'll use a hashtag, cardiology or mental health, to specifically be part of that conversation. That's a conversation you can be part of as well. So, on social media, you can use a hashtag to effectively group conversations together, either to listen into a conversation or to actually take part in it. And I think, if you're thinking, what does this mean for me? What can I do about this? I would say the first thing is just start listening. Just go onto Twitter, start listening to some of these hashtags, and start seeing the kinds of conversations that are happening. Some of those will be coming from healthcare professionals. In this slide, we're just showing specifically the healthcare professional use of Twitter. A few examples here of some of the healthcare professionals that we see on public social media. As I say, we're tracking about 3,000 of them in Pakistan. But you see that, different platforms that they're using. So we can see Zubair Khan there, gastroenterologist, is using Twitter and Facebook. We see Dr. Permin there is a nephrologist, got about 1,000 followers on Twitter. And you can see there's a little note here about the kind of topics of interest for these individuals. And you see that they don't just talk about medical-related topics, they'll talk about other things. So right at the top there, we see Wakas is a gastroenterologist, specifically tweeting about health systems, politics, and also sports. You know, if you want to empower your medical reps to understand what really makes a healthcare professional that they're going to visit tick, follow them on Twitter and see, you know, what else are they interested in? What are their wider issues of concern? You know, apart from your drugs and products, what are they really thinking about patient care? We were analyzing in the UK for a company that was in infectious diseases. And we saw, and they asked us, tell us what healthcare professionals think about our drugs. And we said, well, they're talking a little bit about your drugs, but mostly they're really interested in addressing the issue of stigma that patients are living with who have this infectious disease. And that gave the company an opportunity to go back and say, great, how do we actually talk to healthcare professionals about the things that really bother them and to talk about stigma and care for patients? So here we see an example of Pakistani healthcare professionals using Facebook. Doctors in Pakistan are really active on quite a number of different Facebook groups. And a lot of those groups are not just for healthcare professionals only, but they have others in there as well. So they may well be responding to patient questions, engaging in topics around, you know, emerging treatments or approach, and so on. This doctor here, Haris Qureshi, is active on Twitter. You see he's got 1,800 followers on Twitter. He's also highly active on Instagram. Has 5,000 followers on Instagram and 2,000 Facebook followers. So really engaged, both with other healthcare professionals and also members of the public. And finally, just a note to say that the healthcare professional behavior on social media in Pakistan is developing, it's accelerating, but it's still really, in a sense, in its emerging kind of state. So what we actually see at the moment is that certain individuals, a small number of individuals, are really driving a high volume of content. So you can see here the number of Twitter followers on the left-hand side. You know, a large number have just a few Twitter followers, and a much smaller number have, you know, a very high number. And the same in terms of volume of content posted. You know, the high volume, more than 10,000 tweets, for example. There's a smaller number, about 200 healthcare professionals that are very, very high volume healthcare professionals. And that's growing and developing, and we're seeing it develop over time at the moment. So it's a good time to start learning about this, to start making your teams aware of it, to think about how to use this effectively. Okay, so in summary, 10 ways that you can leverage this information. Be where your customers are. Actually, you know, get onto social media. Listen to what's going on. Listen to customer needs. That's really the point about that, really. And even try following a pharmacist or a doctor and see what's on their mind. How can you add value to the conversation? It's not going to be about, well, even from a compliance point of view, it's not going to be about talking about drugs on public social media, about medicines. It's going to be, how do you really talk about something that is going to appeal, engage, and add value into the conversation that healthcare professionals are having? Collaborate with your international colleagues, because you can see these healthcare professionals are part of a global network. There'll be Pakistani healthcare professionals who are being followed by healthcare professionals in numerous other markets. So explore ideas with your international colleagues. Think about deploying resources over mobile. When you put any kind of digital resources together, consider the fact that when they're using social media, they're more likely to be using an Android device in Pakistan than any other platform. If you want to get a wide reach, use English language, and maybe for some of the kind of focused local issues, Urdu is useful, because we know that 25% of the tweets are coming out in Urdu. Respond to customer concerns. When you know what healthcare professionals are really concerned about, look at responding to them. You may not necessarily choose to respond on social media, but you might choose to, if it's a healthcare professional you already have a relationship with, actually reach out to them. And again, you may not say to them, we followed you on Twitter, but going empowered with the fact that you've understood how they view pharmaceutical reps, or you've understood how they view particular issues around treating patients, can be really give you a huge opportunity. Use meaningful hashtags. We saw some of the hashtags on that previous slide that healthcare professionals are using. If you go on social media, use some of those. Again, start by listening to them and just seeing the conversation that's in there. Choose the right social media channels. Look at the ones where healthcare professionals are. I showed you there's a lot of Twitter data, also Instagram, Facebook, and so on. You might think about LinkedIn as a platform where you can really get to professionals, quite effectively as well. You could think about creating a closed LinkedIn group. And identify, we call them digital opinion leaders, that those, or you might think of them as online KOLs, those healthcare professionals who are really influencing their peers, that are really well connected, can be really powerful for engaging other peers effectively. So I promised you this copy of this ebook. Just to finish off, this is 101 ways to transform your pharmaceutical brand strategy. It's a book of just conversation starters, actually. When you flick through it, it's got a number of chapters on key approaches, but it's just got ideas in there to talk about with your colleagues and hopefully stimulate conversation. To get that book, go to www.creation.co. Okay, creation.co, that is not co.uk. That's something else. Go to creation.co/knowledge, and at the top you'll see a link that says subscribe. And when you subscribe from Pakistan, next week, my team will send you a copy of this ebook free of charge. So that's especially from delegates at this conference. Anyway, thanks very much.